Have you ever wondered what you're getting when you purchase a premium e-bike? Is it just like any other e-bike and they've slapped a higher price tag on it? Or have they added features and components that really do elevate the ownership experience? Well, that's what I aim to find out when testing this, the EVELO Omega. It's a comfort cruiser that has more than just a mid-drive motor with 105 Newton meters of torque. It has a whole slew of accessories and features and components that really do make this one of the quietest, smoothest e-bikes I've tested yet. So let's talk about all that and more in this review of the EVELO Omega. All right, guys, so the EVELO Omega, this is made by a small company out of California, and this is priced at $39.99. So yes, it's going to be up in the premium e-bike price tag territory. Now, for that, you're going to get a bike that they say weighs 55 pounds, but they clarify that's without the battery. Once you throw in the battery, that goes to about 64 pounds for the bike with standard equipment. This one has an upgraded saddle, upgraded suspension seat post, and upgraded suspension stem. So this one weighed in a little heavier for me, around 67 pounds, but if you go with the standard bike itself, it should be right around that 64-pound range. Now, this only comes in one color, that's this tan color, and it's also only in one size, and that covers from 5'4" all the way up to 6'2". Now, at 5'11", I'm kind of right in the middle of that range, and I thought the bike fit me just fine. I had no concerns, either being too short, too tall, nothing like that. It felt good overall, so I feel pretty confident, at least at that higher end, 5'11", upwards of 6 foot, that it's going to fit you just fine. Now, in terms of some frame geometry numbers, this is a 46.5-inch wheelbase from rear hub to front hub or vice versa. You have a 17-inch standover height, so the lowest point you can step over is 17 inches off the ground. You have about 9 inches of adjustability here in the seat post, from around 31 inches from the ground up to 39 inches, so about 8 inches, excuse me. And then you have a 21-inch reach up top, and then the max payload for this bike is 350 pounds. Now, in terms of tires and wheels, we've got a 26-inch alloy wheel setup, and that's wrapped in a 26 by 2.8-inch wide Innova commuter slick tire. Now, these tires are roll very quiet. They're very cushy, very comfy, and you can run a little bit lower air pressures in these higher volume tires. We're getting upwards of 3 inches wide. That's going to allow you to run maybe 10 PSI lower than you normally would need to. And what that does is it gives you a little bit of cushion in this rubber with the body weight on it, and those little vibration dampening cushions in the tires when you air down go a long way in comfort, especially on a rigid bike with no suspension. But we'll talk about that later because, like I said, we have some upgraded suspension features on here as well. But nonetheless, if you went with the standard options and just air down a few PSI up to about 10, this becomes a really comfortable bike. And as a cruiser that's not meant to go off-road, you really don't need suspension, and airing down just a bit really does take out most of the imperfections you would get on a city ride anyways. Now, in terms of things like accessories included or not, you do get front to back fenders on here. They have lots of mounting points, so they're nice and secure. They are a composite material. And then you get LED lighting up front. You get a Cree adjustable light headlight in the front, and then you get this tail light mounted here at the base of the seat post, right at the quick release handle. Now, in terms of a rear rack, they do offer a rear rack, but it's optional. You can get the rear rack, and when you do, that will make space for the spare battery should you want to double up on the battery, which will push the range all the way out to 100 miles of range. But we'll get into those range numbers next. Just know that the rear rack is optional, and once you have it, you do make a home for that second battery should you want to opt for that as well. All right, so let's talk about power. So the initial overview we just covered was kind of some of the basics you'd expect to see on most e-bikes. Nothing super out of the ordinary or interesting there, but now when we get to the power, battery, and then up next the components section, we really get to see a lot of what makes this bike unique and start to justify that premium price. So starting off with the motor, we have a nice mid-drive motor. This is a Bafang mid-drive motor, and now it's nominally rated at 600 watts, and it can peak at up to 980 watts, so a lot of peaking power on this as well. Very smooth natural pedal assistance, but on top of that, it puts out 105 Newton meters of torque. Now, like you, or maybe like you, when I saw those numbers up to 980 watts peaking, 105 Newton meters, 600 nominal, I thought, wow, this is gonna be a really fast, punchy cruiser, which doesn't really fit the vibe of a cruiser. But in fact, they kind of went the opposite direction. What they did is they really leaned into the comfort vibe of this cruiser. What that did is it gives you a casual acceleration. It gives you casual throttling. Everything about it feels nice and relaxed. It's never punchy or overbearing. But where that really starts to shine, that extra power, because you're probably wondering, well, then why have all that extra power, is because when this starts to tackle things like hills or carry an extra load, it has a lot of extra low-end torque and muscle to really tackle anything, so it always feels confident. It never feels like it's overextending itself. It never feels like it's taxing the system, the battery, the motor. It just feels like putting a really high-end engine into a light economical car and then programming it to just ride for gas mileage all the time. But it's got all that muscle should you ever need it to get up a big hill or something along those lines. The bike is really uniquely programmed. We don't see that often. We usually see the opposite, where everybody puts in, you know, maybe a 500 watt motor and then just maxes out its potential. On the other hand, here we have a lot of potential and dialed it way back to use it only when you need it. And I kind of really like that. It makes this feel like it should last a long time because it doesn't feel taxed or overworked like some e-bikes can feel. Now, on top of that, we've got pedal assist, as you would expect. We've got Class 2 speed, so this bike is a true Class 2 e-bike, up to 20 miles an hour on throttle and pedal assist. Now, with the caveat that you can go into the menus and you can set the speed at 0, and that will let you get, I got about 25 miles an hour on pedal assist, and the throttle's still capped at 20, which keeps it nice and within the law, which is a good thing these days. Now, on top of that, you can have 4 levels of pedal assist or 6 levels of pedal assist. I prefer less. Less is more, in my opinion. It's just easier to work with instead of remembering to constantly switch pedal assist levels. But if you want more, you do have those as an option. And now it comes with a battery that is frame integrated with 48 volts and 15 amp hours, and that gives us 720 watt hours of power. Now, this battery is securable in the frame. It comes with a set of keys. I'll show you how to take that now. Simply put the keys on the non-drive side, turn it, and that will drop the battery out for you. This will allow you to pull the battery. They did kind of color match the entire battery, which is pretty cool. Also, on the front end here, you have a quick display readout. So if you're in the house and you want to just tap it and see what the charge is at, you can tap it. Maybe you can see those green LEDs right there to give you just a quick indicator of whether or not you got a charge or not before you grab this, take it downstairs, pop it in the e-bike, and find out the hard way. Now, to put this back, you'll just simply put it in the reverse way that you took it out. So we'll pop in the bottom first and slap in the top, and then re-secure that key. Now, in terms of range, they say this bike can get up to 60 miles, but that's with a caveat. They also offer a spare battery, like I said, goes into the rear rack position, and that pushes range out to 100 miles. Now, 100 miles is a ton of mileage, so with the factory condition of 1 battery, we did a range test in 2 runs, and on max speed, so going full bore, basically 20 miles an hour the whole time, I got 37 miles. And when I dialed it back to eco mode, reducing that pedal assist to a much lower amount, going slower, and in pretty ideal course conditions, I was still able to eke out 62 miles, so going a little bit over their range estimations. So all in all, between 37 and 62 miles, whether you're going slow or fast, is really solid range numbers. But just know that should you want up to 100, and based on my testing, I believe it can probably get there, you can shell out the extra cash for the rack and the battery and get that 100 miles of range, which is really, really solid as well. Now, one interesting thing about the battery, the bike, and the company is really just their warranty. So now most e-bike companies have 1 year to 2 years, but EVELO gives one of the best warranties in the game, and that's a 4-year, 20,000 mile warranty. We're talking almost new car warranties on this type of e-bike, which we don't see often. Now, on top of that, they also have support 7 days a week, which not a lot of brands can argue the same thing. And on top of that, they do have a 21-day trial period. So should you take the bike, put it together, ride it around, and not really love it, you can send it back. And get this, they don't have a restocking fee, which is, again, not something we see too often. So they clearly are proud of their work and stand behind it. All in all, just a nod to basically a company that stands behind its product. All right, so let's talk about some more of the interesting features on the EVELO Omega, and that's going to be when it comes to componentry. So I'm going to start in the back here where kind of a lot of the really cool stuff is happening. So you see up front, we've got the mid-drive motor we talked about. That's got all sorts of features and power that we really like. But in the back, what looks like another rear hub motor, and that obviously would not make a lot of sense. And that's because it's not a rear hub motor, despite it looking like one. What it is the Enviolo Automatic shifting system. Now, this is basically a CVT, or continuously variable transmission. And while that sounds like a super technical term for a bike, what it really means is while you're riding the bike, it's doing all the math on the back end, measuring how hard you're pushing, how fast you're pushing, and saying, okay, let's bring a couple gears down. Let's bring a couple gears up. Let's go down a gear, up a gear. Oh, they're going up a hill. Let's shift down. Oh, they're going downhill. Want to go faster. Let's shift up. So it's really just responding real time. And it's essentially the version, if I could put it into 2 camps that make it the most sense, you have a manual transmission back in the day, a 5-speed shifter, where you would be shifting with a clutch each gear. That'd be similar to a typical rear derailleur with a chain and it shifting through each gear as you go, and you're dictating when those shift points occur based on how you want to ride. Well, on a bike like this would be considered, well, the automatic transmission of bikes. It's going to shift for you. It knows when to shift. And a lot of times I'm a little skeptical with this technology, but Enviolo's been around a while. They're well known. And on this bike, it is very dialed in. You'll see when we go on a ride here in a minute. Every time I slowed down, it would shift down for me. I'd come to a stop, it would shift down for me. I'd think to myself, oh, I'm gonna go a little bit faster, but I'm not gonna make it overt. I'm just gonna slowly increase my pressure and pedaling. And as I did, it would know exactly when to shift. It's just a really intuitive riding experience that makes this ride kind of just feel like autopilot. Now, you put it in a middle of the road PAS gear, or even at the highest like turbo or boost or something like that, and then with automatic shifting, you don't really need to think about much. You just look where you wanna go, follow your route, and it gets you there without you fumbling with cable tension and shifting gears and maybe mystery rattles when a derailleur is out of alignment, plus the grease stains on your leg. There's just a lot that go with a metal chain and rear derailleur setup, or kind of an old school manual transmission. And with this new Gates carbon belt drive here, this is a carbon belt that replaces the standard metal chain you're used to seeing, where those standard metal chains have pulleys and rollers that wear out, and over time they stretch, and then you need to replace your chain. Or if you ever lay down your bike the wrong way or bump it the wrong way, that rear derailleur gets out of alignment. Basically, this removes all of that, and you always have precise, accurate, automatic shifting with no mess. And then on top of that, the maintenance on a Gates belt drive like this, you don't even need to think about it until after 10,000 miles, and I'll let you go ahead and pull out a calculator and look at your calendar and see how often you ride your bike, but it's gonna take a little bit of time for you to reach 10,000 miles. But for most people, they may never, or it'll take many years. So you really have a very low maintenance, hassle-free e-bike that just makes life a whole lot easier. Now, the rest of that drivetrain is going to be a 26 tooth cog in the rear with a 55 tooth chainring up front. We have 170 millimeter alloy cranks with some nice nice alloy Welgo pedals made by Welgo. They are flats. They have some traction studs on them and some reflectors as well. Now, in terms of the braking, we got another beefed up braking situation here, which is great. So up front, we've got 180 millimeter rotors, in the rear 160 millimeter rotors, and these are the thicker rotors. And on top of that, they used a Tektro Agira braking system, hydraulic disc brakes that are e-bike rated. They have motor cutoff sensors. They have adjustable reaches up front, and then with that larger rotor in the front, smaller rotor in the rear, it's just a really solid braking setup that on a 60-pound bike, it feels like it has very, very confident braking at any time I ever needed it. And something like Agira Tektro brakes are going to be easy to get replaceable pads at your local bike shop. This is a well-known system. Any mechanic in town knows how to work on it. Just makes life a whole lot easier. And at the end of the day, as far as maintenance goes, you're really only looking at things like maybe a brake bleed from time to time or some new pads. Because of that CVT transmission and the Gates carbon belt drive, you're not messing with the chains, derailleurs, grease, and all of that cable tension that comes with it. Everything is just automatic, plug and play, super smooth and easy to use. And depending on what you do every day and how you like to ride your bike, that really is the sweet spot of just being able to enjoy your bike without worrying about all the extra hassles that come with it. Now, in terms of the saddle, this is the Cell Royale Double XL Comfort Saddle. You can see we've got some spring supports on the bottom, a nice wide plush seating area on it. But this is an upgraded saddle that is an option when you purchase it. You do get a Cell Royale Comfort memory foam saddle, but it's going to be more narrow, not as wide as this one. This one is very, very comfortable. And then when you pair it up with this Cane Creek Thudbuster suspension seat post, between these two right here, this bike would never need suspension. It's a very, very comfortable ride, very smooth and easy to use. You got your taillight mounted at the quick release lever here. And then up front, we have our cockpit. So we've got an alloy Dutch cruiser bar here. It's kind of a Dutch city bar that sweeps back to you. We've got ergo platform grips on both sides. The Tektro levers here on both ends that have adjustable reach, Allen key slots. On the left side is your push throttle, your PAS control buttons, and then your display for the Bafang color display, which is really nice as well. And then cable management is routed through these cable ties and into the frame for their final destination. But let's take a closer look at this display and talk about all the features it has and some things you can adjust in the advanced settings. So this is the home screen on the Bafang color display that comes on the EVELO Omega bike. Now, basically here on the home screen, the essential information you need while riding is going to be right here. So up top, we've got our battery remaining charge. So right now it's at 99% in both numerical numbers and a visual bar representation that both will kind of trickle down as you use energy. In the middle, we've got our miles per hour or our current speed. Below that, we've got our time of day. This little section right here is kind of a graphic that as you use power, will have kind of an animation that shows you how much power you're using. And then below that, we've got our current PAS mode, which is an eco. And as I tap these up and down arrows, you'll see it will change colors and change to the different types of pedal assist. Now, if we want to see some other metrics, we can tap the menu button, and that will show us a trip meter at 135 miles. Our odometer, the same. Our max speed has been 35.5 miles an hour. Mind you, that was on a downhill. And average speed is about just under 12 miles an hour. And our range currently shows 40 miles. So that's something good to talk about right now. Like I said, I got 62 miles of range on this when I was riding it. So even though this shows you a range, it's a good rough number, and it's only guessing based on how you will use the bike. But if you're keeping things conservative, I was able to get a pretty confident 60 miles range out of this. So just use that if you're riding aggressively, and that will show real time how that will kind of trickle down to a more accurate number. Now, if we tap it again, we come back to cadence, which is the speed at which the rotations per minute that you're pedaling the bike. And then the current time on the bike being used, we have almost 700 minutes. And then one more tap takes us back to the home screen. Now, if I was to hold this up arrow, you'll see the headlight indicator come on and the screen gets dimmer. If I hold it up again, it turns off and the screen brightens up. We should also mention this is the brightest the screen gets. It's a little hard to see in certain situations. Like right now we have a cloudy day and it's kind of a lower resolution, or it appears just a little bit dimmer. But just keep in mind, even with sunglasses on a bright day, I can still see it without any issues. And because of its nice big size, it's pretty easy to see everything. But in some conditions, it can be a little dim feeling. And I did check on the back end. This is already at 100% brightness, so it does not get any brighter than this. Now, if I hold the down button, which I won't, you'll see a little foot icon, and that will put it into walk mode, which will go about 3 miles an hour. So you can walk with the bike instead of having to push the weight. But let's go into the advanced settings. So we're going to hold the plus and minus of the pedal assist. Takes us to some advanced settings. So up top here, like I said, 100% brightness on the screen. If I go down, this is how many minutes will pass before it turns off automatically. So right now it's set to 8 minutes. If I was to walk away right now, 8 minutes from now, this bike would just power off, which is a nice just safety backup if you forget to turn it off. Down below, you can change your clock to a 24-hour or 12-hour setup. Down below here, you see themes. So if you want to change that theme, maybe you don't like that current theme we had with that round display in the center, you can tap this and we'll pick a different one. So let's pick the one over on the far right and we'll see what that looks like when we back out. Now down here is where you can switch between 4 or 6 pedal assist modes. And then here you can reset the trip meter. All right, so let's go to some of the other settings here. So we have trip reset again, change units between kilometers or miles per hour. You can get reminders for service intervals if you want by turning that on here. This is sensitivity to the pedal assist system. This would be your boot password. If you wanted to set a numerical password for riding the bike once it turns on, maybe you park it downtown and you don't want someone to just come and hop on the bike and ride away, this would be a way to kind of deter that by making them use a PIN code to activate the pedal assist and the features of the bike. Here you can reset the password. And then we will go to return. We'll go to the next menu. This is going to be informational menu. So we have wheel size, speed limit at 19.9. However, if you go into here and set it to 0 and go to OK, you'll see it'll say waiting, and then it'll change to unlimited, which, like I said earlier, took me to about 25 miles an hour. Now, battery info, you can get information about the battery, the controller, hardware information. You can go through warning codes, which are empty right now, or error codes, which are also empty right now. But if you were getting an error on the screen, you could go in here and get specific codes that you could then relay to that 7-day-a-week customer support that EVELO offers. So we will go back to return, go to the next menu. This next menu is going to be languages. You can pick between any of these 5 available languages that you speak to the whole display, which will change all the language on the display so you can use it in your native language. If you go back up to here, we got theme, and that was just to pick between the theme modes that we were on with the home screen. So previously when I showed you on the other screen, it had those different theme icons. We picked a different one. This is where they have names like sports, fashion, and technology. So we'll go here to the final one, which is riding parameters, and you can change speed limit percentages here and current limit percentages, but I don't mess with things like current limits, voltage, stuff like that. But if you do want to, there are the areas you can tweak that as well. Now to back out of here, we're just going to go to the final page. We'll go hold plus and minus, and we're back. And now we have that new, I believe this was the technology theme that they have. And so it's just a slightly different layout, slightly different colors, but it just gives you a different way to view things. And you have 3 of those different ones, the sports, the fashion, and the technology. So out of that, that is the essentials of the EVELO Omega. There is no app you have to deal with. Everything you need is right here in the display. And other than that, I've had no issues using it. Aside from the slight dim issues, other than that, it's been a really solid display. All right, we are out on the EVELO Omega. And one thing I immediately just kind of appreciate and noticed is, you know, the bike styling in general is kind of those European Dutch city cruiser style. They're very upright, very relaxed. It's a very comfortable seated position. You're not stretched out for the handlebars. They sweep back to you and kind of just go right where your hands naturally fall in front of you. And then this version we were sent, so this test unit that I have, they also sent the upgraded Cell Royale, that extra wide padded seat. And between these ergo grips, that padded seat that I'm sitting on, the suspension seat post, the suspension stem, and the big 2.8 tires, plus the bike's geometry, it's just I mean, you don't need real suspension on this. This is a very smooth, quiet, comfortable bike just right off the bat. But let's hit this throttle here. So this little grade here is 9%. It doesn't look very big on TV, and it's not very big, but it is 9% all the way up until the top here. And it looks like the bike is still, it dropped about a mile an hour, and then it just pulls through. So it's important to note a bike like this is not meant to be a speed demon. It's not meant to be, you know, sprinting up hills, but it's got everything it needs to get you to speed and to get up hills without really struggling. So it's kind of that bike built around being a comfortable, relaxed ride, and that's where this bike really shines. The good news is, with peaking at over 900 watts and 100 newton meters of torque on this mid-drive, you still got enough muscle to do whatever you need, just nothing wild, you know? So let's go up this neighborhood hill here. Now, if you notice there, I was going 15 miles an hour or so, came to a stop, and then was able just to immediately start pedaling again at the perfect level because of that EVELO CVT, which just does the shifting for you based on a couple parameters, things like how fast the bike is going, how hard I'm pedaling. It's doing that math and saying, okay, he's working harder, he's pushing harder, we need to give him some more resistance, or he's going, you know, 15, 16 miles an hour, we need to have more resistance, but then all of a sudden I stop and it recognizes that and it shifts it down for me. So it's just always in the right gear, which if you don't feel like fumbling with gears and rear derailleurs is a really nice feature. But let me push these pedals a little bit harder on this hill. I'm not going to go crazy, not going to go out of breath. But I just want to show you can still accelerate up this hill without really any hard work. Mind you, I'm in boost mode and the max speed is 20, but it just climbs right up the hill without any problems. So not built around speed, but it has all the power you need. Yeah, I can very comfortably pedal up this hill, maintain a nice speed of almost 18 miles an hour. And if I push harder, sure, I'll accelerate, but it wouldn't be natural. That was a very natural, relaxed pace in boost mode that took me up that hill without any real issues. The mid-drive feels very good. That's just one of the perks of getting a more premium bike, and you get a more premium motor setup with a little bit more logic and capability in terms of it understanding what you are looking for in terms of power delivery and then how it feels. It feels very natural, very smooth. And with an automatic transmission like this, I mean, it's kind of on autopilot all the time. So you may have heard that right there. That was it downshifting for me. Let's check these brakes out. These are Tektro Auriga. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's A-U-R-I-G-A, but Tektro is a really good brand. And these are hydraulic disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotors. We have adjustable reach. And so let's get up to 20 miles an hour and do a little quick stop. 3, 2, 1. So a little noisy, just with a little bit of scrubbing sound, but that's just brake pads and
I could have got contaminated on a rotor or something with my hand. But all in all, braking power is great. You definitely don't need any more. And the bike isn't crazy heavy. So with the weight of the bike and the power of the brakes, it's a really nice combo. So let's get back on this path. Wanted to show you the acceleration on throttle. Just to kind of give you an idea, you might have heard that there, that was the shifting again. It's just making those shifts for me as I go. Like right now, if I just pedal slow, I'm not trying hard, I'm pedaling slow, the bike's just gonna go slow for me. And then as soon as I start increasing pressure, I hear a shift change, I hear the motor pick up. It just really intuitively knows how to work with you while you ride the bike. And if you like that more automated, more premium experience when you're riding, kind of less thinking, just more enjoying, this is a really solid option. Let's get down this hill that we came up, and we will see how the throttle does. You've got 4 ride modes, but you can switch in the settings to 6. So right now I have it on 4 pedal assist modes, but you can change it to having 6 if you want more refinement. Let me get on this flat stretch. All right. Whew. I'm gonna have to clean those brake rotors off. I must have got a contaminant on them. All right, so put it in boost mode. Out of the 4, we have Comfort, which is I guess like BAS1, Tour, Plus, and Boost. Or they have Off, so Off is considered a mode as well. So we have Off, Comfort, Tour Plus, Boost. And if I hold the menu buttons, I can go in and change it to 6 pedal assist modes. There we go. And now we'll have Eco. Oops. So now we'll go Off, Eco, Tour, Sport, Sport Plus, Boost. So there you go. So you got several different mode options. I like less. I don't feel like I need to think about it that much. And frankly, with the automatic transmission, I kind of like to leave it in like Tour or Sport, one of the middle modes. That way I can just pedal as needed, and it's got pretty much all the power to give me if I want to go faster or not. And if I really need to punch, I have boost mode. But let's keep it in boost and just go from 0 to 20 with a throttle only, just see how it turns out. 3, 2, 1. So the only thing I ever hear on this bike is, well, 1, the brakes, but that's kind of on me with the rotor contaminant, I think. But 2 is the changing of the gears, and it's pretty subtle. You don't hear chains because you have that carbon belt. So you don't have rear derailleurs, drivetrains. And so as you can see, it pretty casually gets up to 20 miles an hour and just hovers around that upper 19.8, 19.7. So again, a really solid, relaxed ride for people who don't want to go crazy with, you know, the maintenance of a bike, rear derailleurs, chain grease, cable tension, things like that, and want kind of that higher end feel of a really natural pedal assistance. And then the beauty of the CVT does the shifting for you. It's really a bike you can just get on. You don't need to do a lot of thinking. You can enjoy it. You can be relaxed. You can be comfortable. And really, a lot less visits to a bike shop because there's a lot less moving parts on here that are going to require regular servicing, like a rear derailleur would, cable tension, chains, things like that, especially chains on a mid-drive. If we had a metal chain on this mid-drive, those chains get worn out fairly quick because of all that torque on the chain. And what this does is it gives us, you know, over 10,000 miles without ever needing a service on a mid-drive, and it's quiet. There's no chain rattle, there's no slap. It's just a very smooth, quiet setup. But let's go back, put it on the stand, and talk about some of those more specific things about maintenance, ownership, maybe the things you wouldn't think about when you're about to buy one. So let's go do that. All right, so this is that point where we kind of talk less about it from a review standpoint and more about it from your potential ownership standpoint, the things you might not realize when you're on the product page and you're looking at all the marketing info, everything looks fun and great. And then you get the bike and you realize, oh, I didn't know that would happen, or I didn't know it had this feature. I wish I'd have known that. These are the types of things we like to cover here. So that way you don't have any surprises when you make that purchase, especially on something when you're spending a good amount of cash. Now, the good news is,
there's not a lot of bad going on. Most of it is essentially good, but there are a couple things I will point out that I think are important for someone who's going to be buying this. But I'll start with the good, and the good is basically one sweeping statement. Everything on here was really well done. They used really high-end parts, from the Tektro gear hydraulic disc brakes to the Enviolo Automatic CVT to the Gates carbon belt drive. It's just well done. Parts that are name brand, have a long lifespan, and very, very little maintenance. If you don't like to go to a bike shop and you don't like to be dropping your bike off for service and tune-ups because it's not shifting right, not feeling right, not sounding right, this is the type of bike you can buy, you can ride, and you can basically not think about it for many, many years, which is a huge plus for a lot of folks. And so that's going to be just the first sweeping overall good. Now, in terms of things that you should be aware of that you may not think are as good, I'm going to start with the paint job. Now, we talked about there's only one color, that's this tan color. I personally like the color. I live out in a desert environment, so I kind of like having this color. But I will say, this paint job, you may be able to see on camera, maybe not. You might see some slight scuff marks. Now, that's not scratched into the paint. What that is as I get on and off the bike and my shoe kind of rubs, the rubber just kind of brushes against the frame, it leaves like a little rubber scuff mark. Now, the bad news is that's going to leave like a visual blemish on the frame. The good news is you can simply wipe it off with a finger or a rag and it goes away. It's not a permanent scuff on the paint. It just seems like this type of finish and this color combo is just very susceptible to rubber of shoes leaving little brush marks as you get on and off the bike. Now, for most people, they're not going to care at all, but for some people who like to baby their bike, that will be a huge blemish for them. So I at least think it's worth your time and just knowing that beforehand. And then the last thing I'll harp on, and it's again pretty small, is the taillight. Taillight works fine, does its job, no issues there, but it feels like a bit of an afterthought on a bike that was otherwise really well done and planned out. This little mounting bracket into the QR release or the quick release of the seat collar, and then the wire coming down kind of awkwardly here with this quick disconnect into the frame. I feel like it just feels like this is something they put on at the end and said, oh, we need to put a taillight on it, because everything else is really well integrated. This just feels a little out of place. The good news is it doesn't have a lot of extra slack on it. You're not going to knock it off on things. It feels very secure where it is, and it's nice and bright, easy to see. I just prefer to have something back here more either fender integrated or rack integrated or seat stay integrated. But nonetheless, those are pretty small issues on an otherwise really awesome bike that I really enjoyed riding. All right, guys, so there you have it, the EVELO Omega. This is a really well-done premium city commuter that's just got an emphasis on comfort, relaxation, and really quiet, smooth rides. Now, let's talk about who this bike is not going to be good for. This is not going to be the type of bike if you're someone who just wants to go all-out speed, moped power, off-road, you want shocks and suspension. This, well, clearly is not going to be that bike. And let's be honest, some people are not going to love the fact that there's only one frame color and only one frame size. So if you're under 5'4", this kind of leaves you out. And if you're over 6'2", this will also leave you out. Now, with those groups aside, people who want more color options and people who want kind of a speed demon, multi-purpose off-road bike, we can push those groups out and talk about who this bike is for. This is going to be for somebody who wants a nice, well-done cruiser bike that's going to be just a bit bumped up from your standard entry-level e-bike. This is going to have the more premium mid-drive motor with all that extra muscle on the back end should you need it for hills or carrying an extra load. It's going to have the maintenance-free drivetrain with no chain grease on your leg, no rear derailleur to fumble with, no cable tension and bad shifting. Everything is handled for you automatically, or you can just cruise and go. And on top of that, it's virtually maintenance-free aside from just things like checking the air in your tires, maybe dealing with a flat tire every now and then, or just getting a brake bleed or brake pads. Other than that, this is a very low maintenance, hassle-free bike that just has a good focus on automatic or automated fun when you're riding a bike. Lets you worry about riding the bike and not about how you care of the bike. And that's going to be a huge plus for a lot of people who don't have that time, energy, or even interest in dealing with a bike and some of the headaches that come with it with the traditional parts. This one's just plug and play, ready to go, smooth, quiet, and essentially automatic riding, which is a really nice setup. Now, if you have questions about the bike that I failed to cover, drop them down below. I'll personally get back to you so you have that information. And until the next review comes out, I'll see you guys out on the trail.